Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the UK Stroke Assembly live and in your homes. My name's Tony Banks, Head of Conference and Events at the Stroke Association and really proud Chair of the UK Stroke Assembly. Today is the final episode of our 6-week programme, and we've loved hosting you over the past 6 weeks. We've hosted 18 webinars in total, and we've invited 33 different speakers to bring you a variety of different sessions. And over 500 of you have joined the Stroke Assembly over the past 6 weeks, and we've loved having you. We've even raised some money. We raised over £1,000 in our Chris Tarrant quiz, which was a huge amount of fun as well. So before we begin today's session, I just wanted to say a few thank yous. First, I wanted to thank Fundraising Everywhere, the guys who have hosted this webinar series for us and worked with the Stroke Association to bring this series to you. Nikki, Simon, we're really grateful. You've made this incredibly easy for us, and we're really looking forward to working with you again as we bring this back in the autumn. I really want to thank Natalie as well, who has brought you this series in its entirety. She brings the questions and comments to you every single week, but she does so much more than that. Natalie's the driving force behind the Stroke Assembly and has orchestrated everything. I couldn't have done this without you, Natalie, so thank you so much for everything you've done over the past 6 weeks. We're really, really grateful. My final thank you is to you, our Stroke Assembly audience. Not running the face-to-face event was pretty tough for us this year. We love bringing you the Stroke Assembly. We love meeting you face-to-face at the event, and it was hard for us not to be able to do that this year. So when we set out to do this virtual series, we didn't know how it was going to go. We wouldn't know exactly how to bring it to you. We didn't know whether it was going to be successful, but we know you've enjoyed it and you've been coming back week after week, and we're really, really grateful for that. We know it's not been easy for you either during the lockdown period and this coronavirus crisis. We've heard many stroke survivors telling us they've been lonely and isolated. We've even heard stories of people having strokes and not calling 999 because of the strain they think that will put on the NHS. And that has broken our hearts to hear that. But we hope at the Stroke Association, we've been here for you over the last few months. And at the Stroke Assembly, we hope we've also been here for you. And it's helped a little to stop us all from feeling a little lonely. And it's also helped us to continue to take action on stroke and to continue to rebuild as many lives as possible after stroke. So thank you so much for joining us. We are very, very grateful you've been with us over the last 6 weeks. And we hope you'll join us again in September for a brand new programme, which we're going to announce very soon. So on to today. And today is all around tips and techniques for managing your emotions. As usual, we want you to have your say and introduce yourselves in the chat box. And please do tell us what you think and put your questions to today's speakers. As always, we've got Natalie with us.
Morning,
Natalie,
everybody.
your last session of the series. Thanks again so much for everything you've done. I know you'd like to say a few words as well, probably.
Thank you, Tony. It's been a real pleasure to host everyone for the past 6 weeks, and we can't thank you enough for joining us. These series of webinars that we've done has been such a co-creation of work, and we've had some amazing speakers that have brought some great content to you. So a big thank you to everyone that has joined, all our speakers and Fundraising Everywhere, and to yourself, Tony, for being our host as well. So thank you, everyone. As always, if you would like to share your comments and questions, please do use our comments box. You'll find this on the right-hand side of your screen. And if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll be able to enter your comments and questions into the text bar and submit using the little arrow key. I look forward to reading those today.
Thanks, Natalie. So do have your say. We'd love to hear from you today in this final session. And if you're on social media, please use the hashtag Stroke Assembly and share everything you've seen over the last 6 weeks with others. We'd love you to spread the word. So for now, I'm going to hand over to Sue and to Rasheen, who are delivering today's session for you on tips and techniques for managing your emotions. Please enjoy, and we'll see you very shortly.
Hi everybody, welcome to our presentation and thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. We're just going to do a couple of introductions. Hopefully our internet connections are going to hold up throughout. So my name is Roisin Cunningham and I'm a clinical psychologist who's been working in stroke for I think about 7 years now. It's my main area of work and it's always an area I've enjoyed working in. And I'm doing this presentation today with Sue, who will introduce herself.
Hello. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sue Fitton. I'm a qualified counsellor of 12 years. I've worked for the Stroke Association for about 14 years, of which I've spent 3 years as a counsellor, which involves counselling stroke survivors and their families.
Perfect. Shall we go on?
Okay, I just want to do a quick overview of what we're doing this morning. We're doing the aims for the day are a brief overview of the emotional experiences people may have following a stroke. It's very varied. Some ideas to help you lift your mood and to stay well. Where to seek help and when, and useful practical hints and tips that may help along the way.
Okay, so I guess one of the questions might be, why do we talk about emotional support or emotions after a stroke? And there's a lot of reasons for that, but the main reason is a stroke is a life-changing event. So lots of people struggle with their emotions after a stroke, and that can happen for a variety of reasons. But what we know is that up to 1/3 of stroke survivors experience anxiety or depression as a consequence of the changes from their stroke. And it's not just survivors, because as we know, none of us exist in total isolation. Things that affect us affect our families. So many family carers, whether that's children or spouses, also report a significant level of distress and sometimes difficulties within relationships because of the changes that have been brought by stroke. So that's why we talk about it, to kind of bring awareness to the fact that these kind of difficulties are common and that there is help out there for people. I think I'm on the next slide as well, if Sue wouldn't mind moving it on for me. So there's just a little graphic here to kind of show some of the issues, and I'm not sure how clear the picture will be for you, but it's just some information that came from Stroke Association data and from NHS Improvement, and that shows all of the things that people have to adjust to after a stroke. So 75% of stroke survivors report problems with cognition and thinking after a stroke. So memory, concentration, planning, organising, difficulties with insight, but also emotional ability, where your mood can quickly switch from one state to another. Up to 67% of people reported problems with mood. So we talked about anxiety and depression. Some people also have a trauma response. But then there are things that maybe don't come with a capital letter, things that you might not get a diagnosis of, but are equally as important. So lots of people report a loss of confidence, not quite believing in themselves in the same way, struggling to adjust to changes in their body, and low motivation. When it's just that little bit harder to do everything, it can be really difficult to motivate yourself to do things. On top of the cognition and the individual mood things that people can experience after a stroke, people have interpersonal problems post-stroke. And all we mean by interpersonal problems is that it involves more than one person. So it's how we relate to one another. So people talk about struggling with a loss of identity or a change in their role. Their lives have changed and the roles that they used to perform are different. And also people have reported changes and difficulties in the intimate relationships they have with partners and family. So lots of reasons for people to find that their mood is something different to what it was before a stroke. I think we're on to Sue for the next slide.
Yeah, thanks, Roisin. So yeah, people experience different feelings. It's not unusual for people to feel a range of emotions following a stroke. They may include things like sadness, anger, frustration, worry, all of which are very normal reactions to a major life-changing event. Any emotions that you experience post-stroke are very normal. Sadness and low mood are very common post-stroke. Understandably, it's a life-changing event. It can happen out of the blue, and coming to terms with what has happened can be quite traumatic. A lot of stroke survivors do suffer with sadness and low mood, and if that does not go away after 2 weeks or so, it can be a sign of depression, which again, completely understandable, and help is available via your GP. It's very important to have that relationship with your GP following your stroke. As we know, a stroke can happen with no warning. Denial is very common in stroke survivors, and acceptance can take quite some time to reach, if at all. When people do experience depression, it can make people check in with their mortality and have thoughts of ending their life. If that is a theme running through your journey, it's very, very important to contact your GP, the local mental health team, or A&E if you are experiencing this. Quite often I will say to my clients, is it the death of you that you want, or is it the death of the stroke? Quite often it's the death of the stroke and not the death of them personally. So, setting the scene, emotional difficulties following a stroke can be introduced by neurological changes, fatigue, and changed life circumstances. Fatigue is huge, and obviously if you have experienced post-stroke fatigue, that can also be detrimental to your mood. The two seem to go hand in hand. The neurological changes can bring along emotional changes. The fatigue can impact on that, and the change in life circumstances as well brings in an effect with the mood. We call it hidden changes, hidden effects of stroke. So having a good understanding of the specific effects of your stroke, and when I say your stroke, is being mindful that everybody's stroke is individual. It's not like the next person in the bed in the hospital. The sources of support available can be very helpful in moving forward and living well, and that's where working with the Stroke Association and supporting stroke survivors and their families along the journey after their stroke is very, very, very important. And treating everybody as an individual following their stroke as well is paramount.
There we go. So we promised that we'd try and make things kind of useful and practical today. So it's going to be a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of some things that we know can help manage feelings after stroke. I know there's an opportunity for questions at the end, so if there's anything people want some clarification on, pop it in the chat box and we'll look at them all over the end. So sometimes how we feel about things can be influenced by how we think about them. And most of the time, we've all got kind of a bit of a straightforward relationship with our thoughts. You know, they come in through our heads, they come back out. But actually, one of the key things that we don't often think about is how we relate to our thoughts. So if we can learn to recognise some of the thoughts that we have and what our reaction to them is, that can help us improve our well-being. Now, it's a funny little quirk of being human, is that unfortunately, it's much easier for us to notice our thoughts when they're negative, you know, particularly if they're negative about ourselves. And we also seem to find it harder to stop paying attention to thoughts when they're negative. So that's something that we can learn to do. But it is just one of the strange ways about how the human brain works, that we're almost primed to pick up on the bad things more than the good things. And with a bit of support, we can train ourselves to be thinking differently. Can I bump on to the next slide, Sue? There we go. Sorry, everyone. Sue's the technical one. She's in charge of the slides, so you're lucky. If it were me, I don't think we'd be moving forward at all. So we thinking about those kind of negative thoughts, and specifically about self-criticism. It can be really common after a stroke for survivors to blame themselves for not being able to do the things that they could before, or to judge themselves particularly harshly. So you can see we've got a couple of thought bubbles on the side, and these are some of the things that, you know, Sue and I have heard people talk about feeling in our clinical practice. You know, often people feel that it's their fault, either that they had a stroke, or it's their fault that they're not able to return to work or to continue looking after their grandchildren's in the same way. Now, obviously, we know that the impact of a stroke is not the fault of a survivor. But when I was saying before about how our brains play funny little tricks on us, these are some of the common experiences that people have. And I think another one that we've got there is, you know, must work harder. So we hear that a lot, you know, people who, I should be doing better than I am. If I just worked harder, I'd be further forward. And these are all the kind of things that when we play them over and over in our head, it's almost like having someone else standing outside criticising us. So they don't change the situation, and they can often cause us to feel worse. So we thought we'd have a little think about some things that could help. And I'm going to hand you over to Sue, who's got a little exercise for us to have a go at.
Thank you, Roisin. Yes, it's negative thoughts are quite common after a significant life-changing event. I just would like to introduce you to a 10-minute mindfulness session, which is lovely. It's absolutely one of my favourites. For those of you who maybe perhaps haven't dipped into the world of mindfulness, it's worth a try. Took me a few goes. The definition of mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we are doing, and not being overwhelmed. So it's about being in the moment and being present. So what I would like you to do now is to just find a nice comfortable seating position, and we'll begin the exercise.
So before we start the formal exercise, find a comfortable chair to sit on. Keep both feet on the ground. Keep the back upright and your hands gently resting on your lap. So when you're sitting comfortably, take 3 long, slow, deep breaths. And as you're breathing in and out, imagine you were actually breathing in and out from the base of your feet on the ground. This helps us to become very grounded and in the present moment. So just really notice as you breathe in, your feet on the ground. And as you notice you're breathing out, imagine you're breathing out from your feet on the ground. If you're noticing your mind is wandering to other topics, that's perfectly normal. Just notice this and bring your attention just back to the feet on the ground. Now just notice your whole body resting on the chair. Notice the sensations in your left and your right leg. You might just want to say something like noticing tingling or noticing heat. Just have a few words just to label what you are noticing. Now notice your whole back. Just breathe into your back. Just notice in a few words what sensations you are experiencing right now. And again, if the mind is wandering off on something that happened yesterday or something that's going to happen tomorrow, just bring it back to just noticing what's happening right now. Notice the sensations in your back. Now notice the sensations in the front of your body, in your lung area, in your stomach area. Now notice the sensations in your arms and your fingers. Again, just use a few words like noticing relaxation or noticing tension. Just notice in a very mindful, non-judgmental way, just noticing what is there, whatever it feels like. Now notice your shoulders, your neck, and your head. Just notice what is there. Now notice your whole body just resting on the chair. Okay. To start the leaves on a stream exercise, imagine you were sitting on a nice grassy bank, overlooking a stream flowing very gently in front of you. It's a beautiful sunny day, and you're in a beautiful countryside area. And you're just comfortably resting on this grassy bank, noticing the water flowing below you. And as you notice the water, you can see leaves floating gently on the water. The leaves are different colors, different shapes. Now what I'd like you to do is to imagine that you were like a wizard from one of the Harry Potter movies, and you could magically draw out a thought in your head as it appears in your head and make it magically appear on the leaf, on the stream below you. So it doesn't really matter what the thought is that is passing through your head. What I'd like you to do is to be able to catch the thought with your magic wand and just place it on the leaf below you. It could appear as a word or a few words, or it could appear as a picture of some form. So if you could begin that right now, as soon as you notice a thought popping up in your mind, just imagine it appearing on one of the leaves below you and just watch it gently float along the stream. And then when another thought pops up, just again, feel as though you could magically make that thought appear on the leaf and just see it floating on the stream below you. It doesn't really matter what the thoughts that are appearing in your mind are. The aim of the exercise is to see whether you can separate yourself from the thoughts and to see thoughts as they're appearing. So if you notice yourself getting lost in a thought, i.e. you've forgotten that you're sitting on the bank watching the river because you've lost yourself in a thought, then wake up and just get back to just noticing yourself resting on the bank and place whatever thought that was on the leaf and just watch it gently floating along the stream. If you are a beginner at this exercise, you may be amazed by how many thoughts you are having. This is quite normal. Just notice the thoughts and just keep putting them gently on the leaves on the stream. Even if you have to do them many hundreds of times in this short space of time. Now, if you want to expand this exercise, you can start to think of a topic area in your life where you struggle a lot with certain thoughts that pop up. And you could imagine yourself with the people concerned or the situation concerned and repeat this exercise with the thoughts that are popping up in that particular situation. And just see if you can catch the thoughts that are passing through your mind and just stand back and observe them in this mindful space. The aim of this exercise is not to make the thoughts disappear or float away forever. This is unlikely to happen. The aim of the exercise is just to create a mindful space in which we can notice we are having thoughts. And with this mindful distance from the thoughts, we can then respond to the thoughts in a more appropriate manner. So you can repeat this exercise for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes. But when you feel like it's time to end the exercise, then become aware of your feet on the ground. Take a few deep breaths in and out, feeling your weight resting on your feet and your whole body being supported by the chair you're sitting on. And then be aware of the room around you. Maybe notice some colors and some shapes of objects. Notice the sounds around you. This is the end of the
Hi, everybody. I think we're back now. I think we had a few technical difficulties coming back off that exercise, but I think I'm here. And Sue, are you back with us?
Yes, yeah.
Hopefully everybody watching is back with us as well. So the exercise Sue just presented to you is kind of one technique that you can learn to manage that relationship with your thoughts, recognizing that they do pass in, but if we don't engage with them, they will pass out. And there's a lot more that can be done with mindfulness as a tool. I'm going to just kind of talk through another way that can help how we manage our thoughts and our relationship to them and how we feel about ourselves. So there's a little sort of graphic talking about the concept of self-compassion in greater detail. But literally, self-compassion is recognizing that sometimes we don't treat ourselves the way that we would treat other people that we care about and other people that we love. So I'm going to do a really quick exercise with you, and I just want everybody who's watching, not necessarily to populate the chat box, but just have a good think about it as we go. Okay, so I want you to try and think about a time when a close friend or a family member or a loved one has been really struggling with something. You know, we've gone through recently quite a difficult time, haven't we? Where people have had lots of different experiences. So there might be some inspiration there. But thinking about when someone you care about has struggled. And I want you to imagine that they approach you. Now have a think about how you would respond to that friend. Okay, particularly how you would respond to them when you're at your best. What kind of things you might say to them, how you might feel towards them, what your tone of voice would be, and what words you might use. Now, I just want you to hold that in mind. And then I want you to think about how you are when you're feeling bad about yourself and you're struggling. How do you respond to yourself? What kind of things do you say to yourself? When you talk to yourself, whether that's inside or outside your head, what kind of tone do you use? What kind of language do you use? Then I just want to ask, do you notice a difference? Is there a difference in how you respond to a friend who's struggling and how you treat yourself when you're struggling? And if that's the case, you want to think about why. Why do you treat yourself differently? Why do you treat yourself perhaps more negatively than you would do someone that you care about? And the last part of this exercise is just for us all to have a little think about how things might be different if we treated ourselves and cared about ourselves the same way that we do about our loved ones. And that's a very simple introduction to self-compassion, and we all do it. It's not unique to having had a stroke. We're all really prone to being unkind to ourselves. I bet you can recognise an example from today when you were unkind to yourself, or you spoke to yourself in a way that was unpleasant, or you blamed yourself for something that you wouldn't blame someone else with. And self-compassion is something that we can take with us. And the more we practice doing it, taking those moments and saying, hang on, how would I treat a friend in this situation? As we do that over and over, it can change the way we relate to ourselves. So that was just a little introduction to self-compassion. Have a little check. We're back to Sue, who's going to talk a little bit more about the connection between our bodies and our minds.
Thank you, Roisin. Yeah, that was a lovely little exercise around self-compassion, which is very, very important. So quite often our minds and our bodies, they work in tandem. They're taking care of the basics that can help immensely with mood and coping. And quite often low mood can impact on the betterment of your physical ability to improve. So if our mood is quite low, how often do we find that affects our physical well-being? So making sure that you are eating well, sleeping well, and making time for whatever physical exercise is comfortable. However limited you are, it's making time for you, which is so important, and making it manageable. Just doing those small things each day can significantly impact on you in the longer term. So sleep hygiene, extremely important following a stroke. This is something that we hear quite a lot around fatigue, post-stroke fatigue, but also having post-stroke fatigue can affect your ability to sleep. Sleep disruption is very, very common after suffering a stroke. More than half stroke survivors have problems sleeping in the months following. This can be a neurological impact, it can be a result of mood, and it can be a combination of both of those things. It can impact on your recovery. It can make recovery slow. How often do we have a bad day because we're feeling tired? Sleep deprivation is quite debilitating. It can cause depression, and it can lead to memory problems. Not all of those things, maybe one or two, or a mixture of them all. Fortunately, there are many ways to help alleviate these symptoms, which is very important. So, changing habits and routines. Follow a schedule. Try to go to bed at the same time and wake up round about the same time every day. Not always easy, but roughly trying do this will be very helpful. This will create a habit and help you to fall asleep and stay asleep consistently. Include more movement in your day. However limited you are, include movement. Movement uses energy. Energy can facilitate your sleep hygiene. Exercise or walking, whatever you're able to do, can help your sleep. Expose yourself to sunshine and light each day. Try, if you can, to maybe go out of the house into the garden. Difficult at the moment, I know. So that experience of being outside and coming back into the house. If you live somewhere that's noisy at night, which a lot of us do, I live on a main road, I can empathise with that. Think of ways to prevent noise or avoid it by using, say, noise cancelling headphones, white noise machines. You can buy those, particularly white noise machines, or a fan. A fan in the room helps. Keep your space, your sleeping area, dark, comfortable, relaxing. Blackout curtains are quite good. I've got blackout blinds, which are great. So to ensure that darkness, that transition from your day to evening to night time. Ensure your room is cool, a nice temperature, not too cold, not too warm. And create a bedtime routine. This adapts our brain into thinking, right, I'm going to bed, I'm going to sleep, I'm going to relax. Most importantly, try and avoid electronic stimulation for at least 30 minutes before bedtime. This is very, very important. The blue light on electronics can trick the brain into thinking it's daytime. So no laptops, no TV, iPads, phones. Maybe have a nice warm bath. Read a book, or the hearing books are really good, and reserve your bedtime and your bedroom for sleep, and separate out. Bedtime, bedroom is for sleep.
So I'm mindful of our time, and I've had a heads up for us to be a little quicker to make sure we've got enough time for questions. So I'm going to be fast on the discussion for the next few slides. So the key thing really, and I don't know if you can see the next slide, I think Sue's moving it on for me, is the most important thing is to take time to look after all of ourselves. So taking care of our physical health, but also our emotional health, our social health, our financial health. Sometimes if there's areas that we can't work on at the moment, putting energy into the other areas will still help. So moving on from that slide, another big thing is making sure that you have time for things that are enjoyable. Particularly after a stroke, people often focus on getting back to the things that they feel they should do. We hear a lot about, trying to do the housework, trying to do the things that are chores and an important part of life, but actually it's to remember that if it's important to you to have 20 minutes to chat with a friend, if it's important to you to use your energy on doing something social, that's just as important as and valuable to you, and you shouldn't feel guilty about doing that. So having better expectations in terms of not beating yourself up for only doing or not being able to do the things that are essential, but making sure that actually doing something just because you want to is important for you as well. Jumping on to the next slide. Another issue is knowing what your limits are and being okay about that. So sometimes we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to get back to doing everything that we did before the stroke. So going back to that self-compassion, holding in mind that maybe what you can do for the moment has changed, and that's okay. It's making sure that you build in time for recovery and you don't blame yourself for not being able to do things. Increasing your understanding of how strokes happen, not how strokes happen, the impact of a stroke makes a difference too. If you know why something's happening to you, if you know what those symptoms mean, that's going to put you in a great position to problem solve how to cope. So jumping on to our last slide, there's just a few places that you can get some support if you need to. Your GP can always refer you for psychological support. Sometimes that will be through primary care services. If you're open to a stroke consultant, they can often direct you. Some of the stroke services have clinical psychology input, and the Stroke Association are always there, whether it's at the end of a phone or over a video. So their helpline's on there as well. And that is us at the end, hopefully with time for your questions. So we'll do our best to answer them.
Sue, Washeen, thanks so much for taking us through that. We're going to bring Natalie on. We have got a very brief amount of time left to do some questions and comments, Nat.
Thank you, everyone, for sharing your comments and questions today. I think a lot of people enjoyed the exercise that you provided, Sue. People find it very soothing and great and really enjoyed that. So it's nice to see that people have been benefiting from that exercise. I do have a question. It's from Bernard, and it says, how can I talk to someone about depression? This is almost 11 months since I had a stroke. And I know you've signpost people to some of our resources, but I wondered, Sue, if you had any advice for Bernard or any place that we can signpost him to.
Yes, yeah. Hi, Bernard. Thank you for your question. Yes, very, very common emotion post-stroke. So primarily your first port of call would be your GP, just for them to assess your mood and how you are dealing and coping with it at that time. If this is a long-standing depression post-stroke, the GP may feel that it's appropriate to maybe offer you medication for support and also counselling. At the Stroke Association, we offer stroke-specific counselling. We're very knowledgeable about stroke and how it can impact people on their mood. There is a lot of information on the Stroke Association website. My Stroke Guide, if you've had access to that, is very helpful, very informative. There's a lot of people on the site talking about their coping strategies, how they manage, and generally just that peer support about how to deal with depression, and also normalizing it. It's a big life-changing event that's happened, so feeling it's not surprising I feel like this. This has impacted on my life, and gaining support from family as well. I'm not sure, Rasheen, if there's anything there that I've missed.
No, I think just to add to that, Bernard, a GP, as Sue says, should be the first port of call because he can check out anything else that might be going on. But as well as offering medication, everywhere in England now, if you're in England, has local, it's called IAPT, which is a silly acronym for basically a talking therapy service. But you can usually self-refer to them. So even if your GP wants to start you on medication, but you want to talk, if for some reason you feel that you want to do talking therapy rather than going through the Stroke Association, or you want to kind of explore things pre-stroke, that's an option for everyone. You can self-refer to them.
Thank you, Sue and Roisin. I think that's all the questions we have time for at the moment. But what I will do is I'll make a note of all your questions and comments today, and we'll update you in our weekly email with some answers to those. So thank you everyone for sharing those with us today.
Thanks, Natalie. And Roisin, Sue, we're so grateful for you being part of the Stroke Assembly. I know people have really got a lot out of that session today from the comments we've seen coming in. We'll hopefully have you back at a Stroke Assembly in the future. But for now,
thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you everyone who watched. I hope it's been helpful. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.
Well, everyone, I'm afraid that is all the time we've got now, and that is the last session of this 6-week programme we've been bringing to you. You can catch up on everything we've done so far at stroke.org.uk/UKSA virtual. Every webinar is on there, so please do go and watch the ones that you've missed. And as I mentioned, we're back in September. We return on the 2nd of September with a brand new programme, which you can influence. Please tell us your feedback on what you'd like to see on that programme and what we might be able to do a little bit better or a little bit differently in the future. We'd love to hear from you. And for now, thanks so much for joining us over this past 6 weeks. We've loved having you as part of the Stroke Assembly. Have a wonderful summer, and we'll see you in September. Bye-bye.